My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to talk about how important it is to talk openly and non-delusionally about aging if you're a man, so that your wife does not feel alone in this and unable to talk to you. And I will get into what I mean right as soon as I tell you to subscribe. My most recent subscriber episode was on the Meaningless thank you, or thank you is not a compliment. And I am also now on Substack, so if you want to read more of my stuff there, find me on Substack. Okay, so a lot of times guys will say things. So the reason I thought about this is there was, you know how you get fed articles from Google based on your interests, right? And I saw an article and it said, it had a picture, a stock image of an older woman. And the headline was, "At 70, I'm in the best shape of my life, and here's why." And it was like, I mean, how ridiculous is that, right? At 70, unless the rest of the article is like, the first 7 decades of my life, I was chronically ill, and now they've finally found a way to cure this disease. It wasn't going to be. You know, it was going to be the same shit as always about like nutrition and exercise and whatever. And people say this all the time, but the oldest I've ever seen is 70, right? And this is the first time that I've seen it with a woman. Usually I'm being told it by men, but obviously if this article is about a woman, then it's about women too, right? And if you are in the best shape of your life after midlife, then you just weren't in very good shape when you were younger. And that's okay. Exercise isn't everything, right? But like, let's not be insane. There is no world where you were 20 years old, where you looked around and you saw a guy who was 55 and you said, oh, that guy is what I want to look like tomorrow, instead of the guys my own age that are in awesome shape. Obviously, a guy who's 25 looks better than a guy who's 55. Are we like in crazy land? If the same guy was very out of shape when he was young, okay. But to in any way imply that it would be normal for somebody to just get better every year, starting out pretty good, and just like get better and better and better as they age in every single way, is narcissistic. That is a true narcissistic delusion. And when guys say shit like this, by the way, it really turns their wives off. How can you be open about aging, which is a natural process? Everybody ages, everybody dies. How can you be open about that with somebody who's delusional about not doing it? I've seen this like destroy marriages, this kind of attitude, because instead of being on the journey with his wife of aging, you know, like a human, like how humans age, he says he's somehow in a different journey where he doesn't age. And I have a lot of podcasts about this. Age is not just a number, is one of the ones that I remember right now. And so here's what usually happens. A woman says something like, oh my God, like I'm getting so much older. Everything feels different now. And this could be a prelude in a more healthy marriage than the one I'm about to describe. This could be a prelude to both of them talking openly about sex and aging. You know, like usually women are ramping up to say something else, you know, like if they're talking about aging, like maybe my vision is getting worse, or maybe it's hard, my metabolism is slowing, or frequently it's sex hurts now, you know, or I never really have desire anymore. But if they try to be vulnerable and say something like that, and it's very vulnerable, as you know, as you're aware, to say that you're an aging animal, you know, and like that's not what we're supposed to be. That's why people are delusionally saying things like I'm in the best shape of my life at 70. And, you know, it's crazy, you know, to say that. I mean, I just cannot get over that. The best shape of my life at 70, the average life expectancy is to die in your 70s. I mean, if that was really true, how sad would that be? How, in what level of terrible shape would a person have had to be to at 70 be in the best shape? But anywho, point being, if she starts out with that conversation and he's like, not me, nah, not me, in fact, getting better and better, like a wine. I'm aging like fine wine. And, in fact, you know how much I could bench at the gym the other day? Really, my trainer, who I'm definitely not paying to like me, says that he's never seen something like that in a 56-year-old guy. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard for you, though. I totally get that. You know what I've seen online? I've seen that hormone replacement therapy can work for lots of women, especially if you add in some testosterone like I use, so I personally don't think we should go gentle into that good night. And he'll drink his fucking smoothie with his macros and walk out the room. And then what's the discussion? The discussion is whether or not she could even tolerate being in a room with him, never mind taking off her clothes with him. So point being, and of course this is, supposed to be funny, and hopefully it's funny sometimes, hyperbole. But this is seriously happening where guys are saying that they're not aging. And so then they can't identify with their wives who are aging. And so whereas maybe another couple could, and I see, by the way, somebody said, is every couple you see sexless? No. People have all kinds of problems, and with a lot of marriages, people still have sex, but they fight, so that's a different problem. And so obviously there's couples who still have sex once the woman is perimenopausal or menopausal. And the difference is that I've seen in those couples is they have more of a friend base. If your friend said to you, man, aging sucks. I used to be able to eat French fries or whatever, and it would be fine. And now if I eat shit, then the next day I'm up 5 pounds and I feel like I never lose it. And a friend of either gender could say something like that, right? Guys say shit like that to me in session 2, by the way. And the truth of the matter is, if you said to your friend, not me, did I tell you what my trainer told me the other day? They would think, what a pompous blowhard, and they wouldn't want to be your friend anymore because you're not joining them and empathizing in what they're sharing in a vulnerable way, and it is vulnerable even if it's a joke. Self-deprecating humor is vulnerable, and so if you are not friends enough with your wife to be able to say, yeah, I'm slowing down too. So for example, here's some ways that guys slow down that they don't admit. Their dick isn't as hard. Now that one's real, for most. And if you talk to enough women in individual therapy as I do, this is something that many couples, they're not allowed to say it. It's the half-hard elephant in the room, and they're supposed to pretend that it doesn't happen, and it happens because he's not 25 anymore. He's 55, right? Or he's even 45. People say, well, it's changed over time. If he's on any medication, if he's not in a new relationship, Coolidge effect, your refractory period increases when your partner is not a novel partner, as I've discussed. Or he can't come anymore. He can't come as fast anyway. And sometimes he can't come at all. And particularly when men are in their 50s plus, this can frequently be a problem that women tell me about that actually ends the sex life completely. Because there are women who still want to be having sex and the guy doesn't want to because everything was around his penis, and they didn't really have any alternate techniques of foreplay or even oral or anything. It was all about kind of him really pounding her, and when he can't anymore, he's embarrassed and he doesn't want to have sex. And that's not uncommon, And Viagra doesn't work for everybody, and everybody's not allowed to go on Viagra, and Viagra has side effects, and you can't use it constantly. And the point, talk to your doctor. I'm not a medical doctor, but I know what people tell me, and what they've been advised. And nothing is a panacea. Nothing makes you younger. There is no fountain of youth. So if you are never allowed to say, man, it really hurts when we keep on going and he's not fully hard and he can't come, and it's sucks for me, and we're not allowed to do anything different. If that's your situation, you're not going to want to have sex, right? Now, what would a healthy couple look like in this? She would be able to talk about issues that she has with drive, desire, lubrication, etc. And he would be able to talk about that it's kind of the same for him. Things are getting harder to do. He loves her. He loves having sex with her. Sometimes he can't come. Sometimes he can't come that fast. Sometimes he's not as hard as he used to be. You know how much better it is to be friends with your spouse? Friends come, they talk about things together. They don't do me versus you. You're old, but I'm still somehow magically young. And that is not what a friend would act like. If you say, I have a problem, a friend often says they have a similar problem. That's called empathy. That's called sympathy. There's no way to be a good friend while you're saying you are bad, but I am good. And one huge way that couples therapy really transforms sex lives is that you're able to talk about sex openly. And that's on both sides. So finally, she's able to say something like, well, actually, it isn't good for me. The longer you last isn't better. It doesn't feel like you desire me. It feels like you're pumping away, and it feels like it's not really about me. It's about that you want to make sure you could still do this. And there's not much desire. Remember, I used to feel desire actually when you would come faster, but there's some, studies about the average length of time people want intercourse. And it's something like 5 to 7 minutes, max. And, after that, most women say it's too long of just straight up intercourse. We're not including foreplay or kissing or anything. Because it hurts after a while. And it especially hurts as the woman gets older. And if she's menopausal, it really hurts, So, and this is what women tell me, is that just when their vaginal, capacity is reduced because of vaginal atrophy and the tissues aren't so plump, they're not wet, they're not filled with blood, you're aging, you're not fertile anymore, etc. That's when he can't come. Because he's getting older and it's harder for him. So that's when, but they're not allowed to talk about it. They're only allowed to talk about her thing as a problem, but not his thing as a problem. And meanwhile, they could come to some solutions that are better if they were able to talk about this. For example, they could do manual stimulation. They could focus more on foreplay. They could not have sex as often, honestly, and engage in other activities like naked cuddling or showering or things like that. A lot of guys are having sex that they honestly are not fiending to have when they're older because it's the only way that they could connect and be naked with their wife and touch their wife at all. So they're having sex that they're not dying to have because their drive has dropped, and it lasts longer than it should, and she's not getting wet, and he's not getting as hard, and they're doing this whole rigmarole because that's the way that they can connect, cuddle, and be close. And this is what many guys tell me, is that, by the way, if you work on things in couples counseling, you start to get closer, feel more like you love each other again, like you're connecting, like you're able to talk about things without one person always having to save face. Then there is more cuddling, there's more non-sexual physical touch, kissing, and these other activities that honestly can sometimes be foreplay that turns into better sex, or can honestly be an activity in and of themselves. Because when people are more honest with themselves about their actual physiological capacity, then they're more honest and they can talk more openly and in a more authentic and useful way about potential ways to connect when things aren't working like they used to work. Now, there's a different problem, of course, when guys are all, and I've talked about this a lot, when guys are all hyped up on, these levels of testosterone to keep them at the level of testosterone of a 20-year-old when they're 60. And, then, of course, and if you combine the testosterone with porn use, then they're fluffing themselves all the time. So they have these super artificially high levels of libido, and they are specifically trying to kind of be further away from their wife on that spectrum because she's aging naturally and he's not. So obviously they end up further and further apart, and if you are, let's say, using porn every day, and I've talked about this so much, you could go to my porn websites, then you think that you have a drive that you don't have. And people go off of it for just a few weeks and they're like, oh, I don't think about sex anymore all day like I used to. I thought that I still had the drive of a 25-year-old guy, but I don't, and that is illuminating. And it can make them empathize with their wife super much because they were keeping themselves in this like artificial state, but now they're not. It would be like if you got drunk every night, so you wanted to go dancing, right? And so you're the 55-year-old who's out dancing drunk in the club. And then let's say you crash your car, or in this case, you crash your marriage by excessive porn use and trying to have sex constantly when somebody doesn't want to, right? Which is how people act when they're on using porn, etc. But anyway, so let's say you crash your car, you get a DUI, and it's your wake-up call, and your health is going to shit, so you stop drinking. Well, guess what? You're not going to want to go dancing at the bar every night. Never seen it yet. People quit drinking, and they quit a lot of the activities that they thought were endemic to their character, but were in fact endemic to their drunk character. And it's really much the same with porn. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. The upshot is if you can't have these open conversations about sex and aging and you feel really distant from each other on this issue, then come to couples counseling. I have a whole podcast called How Does Couples Therapy really improve sex lives? And of course, the answer is yes, and I see that every day in my office. And if you ever need therapy or coaching, reach out to bestlifebehavioralhealth.com. That is my group practice. There's me and plenty of other people that are great too. And remember, guys, this is kind of like a PS that's more global, but if you find yourself with a lot of ways that you're dissembling and trying to save face around your partner, and it's almost like you're the least authentic with your partner out of everybody. Like you're a guy who, if another guy would say, yeah, aging sucks, you'd be like, yeah, I know, man. But then your wife says it and you're like, well, I think maybe you just need to get on the diet that I'm on. You really got to go deeper on why. That is usually related to a lot of attachment issues, trust issues, family of origin. Like you do not feel like you can speak openly to your spouse. So you have to dissemble in this way that ironically makes you less appealing to them than ever. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're not going to like you because you're making yourself unlikable by engaging in this kind of face saving constantly instead of empathizing or joining them in their feelings, which are completely normal for human beings to recognize, and recognize and be wistful about aging, All right. Talk to y'all soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.